Most people lose money in real estate not because of the market but because of their mindset. Before you invest in real estate, you need to ask yourself one simple and but powerful question. Are you making this decision emotionally or strategically? There are two types of purchases people make in real estate. One is emotional purchase driven by feelings, excitement, or pressure, and the other is calculated investment made with a clear plan to build wealth and create passive income. Now, if you are buying emotionally, maybe it is a dream home or a lifestyle choice, that is your personal choice. Do what makes you happy. If you are buying real estate with intention to grow your wealth and generate passive income, then you need to treat it like a business. And business decisions must be made based on numbers, facts, and strategy, not emotions. This is the most common problem. People skip the main steps. They get influenced by the sales agent, follow the hype, and buy without doing proper research. And after they took the decision, they wonder why their investment is not performing. Real estate investment, it is not a luck, it is logic. And no matter where you are investing, whether in Australia or anywhere in the world, you must consider these 10 factors before you take decision. And if you ignore these factors, chances you will lose money. But if you get this right, you will set yourself up the long term success. And real estate investment is not a strategy. If you are someone who is serious about building wealth and create passive income through real estate, and if you are ready to treat property like a business, not an emotional decision, then this video is for you. Don't skip it, watch at the end. Let us dive into 10 important factors every smart investor must consider before buying an investment property. Before you buy an investment property, you need to identify these 10 factors. The first thing is the vacancy rate. Vacancy rate is the percentage of vacant rental properties in that area. Just imagine you are buying a property in a certain area and there are lots of properties are vacant. The vacancy rate is more than 5%, which means it is hard to find tenant there. You cannot get rental growth there. So it is important that you need to identify the vacancy rate, how much properties are vacant there. If the vacancy rate is less than 2%, you can consider. If the vacancy rate is less than 1%, that is more beneficial for you. So it is very important that you need to identify the vacancy rate in that particular area. And another important factor, you need to consider the population growth. If you are planning to invest in certain area, you need to identify what is the population growth prediction for the next 10 years. What is the population prediction for the next 20 years? Many of the countries, especially in Australia, the population is keep on increasing each and every suburb. Population is increasing depends on the infrastructure happening in that particular area. So you need to identify what kind of population growth, what percentage of population growth we can expect in the next decade or next 10 to 20 years. You need to identify that numbers before you take decision. And another important factor, the rental yield. Many of the people, when they invest in real estate, they need returns. They need ROI, return of investment. So which means you need to identify what is the rental yield in that area. For example, if you are getting rental income, like the rental yield means the total annual rental income divided by the property value times 100. So you need to calculate how much is the rental yield. If the rental yield is less than 3%, which is not ideal. Ideally, if you can get 5 or 6%, you need to consider that is an ideal investment property. So it is very important that rental yield, if you are considering this purchase as investment or business, or if you're buying as emotional purchase, if you're buying a dream home, if you are buying if you're buying a property for your better lifestyle, that is your choice. But if you're considering this as business, you need to identify the numbers. And another important factor, risk factors. Before you choose a place, you need to dig more information about what kind of environmental hazards in there, like floods, any earthquake, cyclone, bushfire. In Australia, there are lots of factors that we need to consider the risk factors. Buying an investment property, we need peace of mind. If you're buying a property where the risk factor is there, you will not get the peace of mind. So it is your responsibility to identify a location where there is no low risk. And in order to identify the risk, you can just get some quote for the insurance. Try to get the insurance for that particular property in that area. So if the insurance cost is high, that shows the risk factor is high. So it is very important that you need to identify the risk factor in that particular area. If there is any flood history, you need to rethink about it in that area. And another important factor, renters slash owners ratio. No matter where you're buying, you need to identify the stability of the suburb. If the owner's occupier is more than 60%, that shows the stability of the suburb. And if there is more percentages renters, which means that is not a stable market. So it is important that you need to identify how much percentage of the owner occupiers are living in that particular area. And another important factor, the days on the market. Some places you can see that lots of properties are listed on the market for many days. Sometimes you can see that maybe more than 80 days or 100 days, maybe more, even more, which means that market is not good. You cannot get growth in that area. So it is important that you need to identify how many days this property is in the market. And stock on the market, we know that there are lots of places, there are lots of building availability, there are lots of land releases are there are lots of building approvals are there. So if there are too much stock available in the market, when you look for a property, if you can see there are lots of property for sale, there are lots of stock on the market, you cannot expect that much growth because there are competitions are there. And another important thing is the building approval and land releases. When you consider to buy a property, you need to check how much land releases and building approvals are there. If there are lots of land releases, building approvals, you cannot expect growth because there are too much supply. And the growth rate cycle, before you get into the market, you need to identify how much percentage of the property value increased in the last 5 to 10 years. So if the property price increase certain growth, like just imagine you are securing a property in particular area, there the property grown more than 50% in the last 2 to 3 4 years, you cannot expect that much growth in the next few years. So you need to identify the growth rate cycle. And quality of the suburb, the quality of the suburb depends on the quality of the people living in that area. And the most important factor, the affordability index. Affordability index means if you're buying a property in particular area, you need to know if the property people can afford. If the majority of the people cannot afford the property in that particular area, which means the affordability index is high, so the number of buyers will be low. So which means you cannot expect that much growth in that area. So the affordability index is another important factor you need to consider. So these are the 10 factors you need to consider. One is affordability index, the quality of the suburb. The quality of the suburb depends on the quality of people living in that area. So you need to identify what kind of employees are living in that particular area. And the growth rate cycle. Another important factor you need to consider is building approval. How much building approvals are there? How much land availabilities are there? And the stock on the market. You need to identify how much stock are currently available on the market. And the days on the market. That is another important factor you need to consider. And renter slash owners ratio. If the owner's occupier percentage is more than 60%, that is stable suburb. And risk factors, it is very important. You need to identify what kind of risk are there in that particular location. And rental yield. Rental yield means the total annual rental income divided by the property value times 100. Ideally, the rental yield should be more than 5%. You need to calculate the rental yield. And the population growth. When you consider to buy a property, you need to identify what kind of population growth we can expect in the next 10 or 20 years time. So the growth depends on the population growth. And vacancy rate, this is the one and most important thing. You need to identify how much properties are vacant, what is the vacancy rate in that area. These are the factors you need to consider. If you are a person who is thinking about to buy investment property for your growth, to build wealth and create passive income, definitely you must consider. And if you're buying a property with a emotional purchase, definitely it is your choice. If you go for emotional purchase, you can buy anywhere what you like. But if you're considering this to build wealth and create passive income, definitely you must consider these 10 factors before take decision. I hope you like this video. If you think the information is valuable, please like this video and subscribe my channel for more. Thank you. I'm Sudesh, working as a buyer's agent. I help busy professionals like you grow wealth through real estate.